Okay, yeah, that was completely my fault. Okay. Okay. So we talked about how Bayard did about how protesting nukes, for him, protesting wars was always had political meaning. There always had to be a couple things going on. And, you would say Bayard did not have the luxury of being symbolic about things. So I was interested in his connections with Kwame Nkumrah, who was the first revolutionary leader of Ghana. And Ghana was the first sub-Saharan African country to become independent. And so Nkumrah is always known as a good guy, but I was surprised to learn that he did wind up, he became president in 1959 and he became kind of a dictator and was overthrown in 1966 and died 5 years later in exile. So that's another sad thing to happen to revolutionary leaders. Not many of them seem to get out alive. And then Ghana was under military rule from 1964 to 1992. So, yeah, we talked about how countries have a hard time like getting it together, getting their governments going. So anyway, that was interesting because there were letters from I was just looking at all that correspondence with Bayard Rustin. There was a lot between him, not between him and Nkumrah, but within associates. And he also had correspondence with Kenneth Kaunda, who was the revolutionary leader of Zambia. And it's just so interesting to me to see how Bayard was involved in so many things in the world, and people were always fighting over him, because I think for somebody like him it would have been like really tempted to just stay overseas rather than going back to the US, but he did. I mean, I think he really had a sense of mission there. And he also spent a lot of time in Nigeria later on. So that was really interesting to me. And then last time we talked about Bayard and the trade unions in Zimbabwe, because I'd looked at more of the Zimbabwe stuff. So yeah, 4 full days at the Library of Congress. That was something.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found mentions of Ralph Bunche's wife, and so that was really cool. Yeah. She was a teacher, and I guess she was involved in teaching strikes, and so that's really interesting to me. Well, that was, and that would have been like in the 50s. By then, she would hopefully not have needed to teach, because Ruth Bunche. It's always interesting to me that she wasn't at Selma, and it's sort of sad because he's in the picture of Ralph Bunche at Selma. He's walking along with Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King, and then he's next to Juanita Abernathy and Ralph Abernathy, and his wife Ruth wasn't there. So I was really interested to find out that she was involved in school strikes. That's another thing that'll be interesting for me to look up. And there was correspondence between Ralph Bunche and Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin when Martin Luther King was being nominated for the Nobel Prize. So, I don't know. The rough thing now is that now I want to go look through Ralph Bunche's archives, and I don't have the money. So, yeah.
So how far can you get at a library, at a normal library, with his, not archive, so to speak, but with information on Ralph Bunche?
I'm just at a point where, I mean, I could read more about him, but I mean, I'm just at the point where you want to look at archives because I have my own interests with it. I'm really interested in whether he corresponded with Bayard. So.
So what does it take to actually look at archives? I mean, how does that whole process work?
Oh, you can. Well, at the Library of Congress, you just get a Library of Congress card. And you can. You need to give them advance notice because not all the archives are stored on site. But Oh yeah, I was starting to talk about that with Susan. It was just nuts. I mean, because there was 49 boxes, and I only had so much time, so I just was prioritizing. And then I found a bunch of information on Ralph Bunche in the very last thing I looked at. Basically, at the end of my priorities, at the stuff
So how long did they give you to look through the archives, or how?
As much as you want. I mean, I could still.
Okay.
You can. I mean.
Can you take pictures?
Yeah.
They let you do all. Oh, okay, that's
cool. Yeah,
cool.
you can take pictures, but
okay.
You can only write with pencils, and you can't bring in your own paper or pencils.
Why is that?
Just because people are jerks.
Or they're afraid someone might write in the books or something.
Yeah, or that people might. Yeah, would damage something, and then they look at your bags before you leave, and they look at the papers before you.
I can see
that
leave. Someone would probably mess it up and distort it so no one would know something. They could just scratch it out or do something weird like that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of archives with archival things, you need to wear gloves, like these white cotton archive gloves, but you didn't there. But like I was looking at one of my pictures and it's sort of like wrinkled, and I was like, oh wait, what does it say? But I just had I didn't want to unwrinkle it to take the photo because it wasn't that important.
Right.
But, what was so interesting is sort of looking over other people's shoulders when you were walking by. I was really curious on what other people were researching, but there's like no talking between people at all.
Wow. Do they have like a guard there, or how does it? Ooh.
Yeah, there's a guard, and they have to, because they give you a locker, and then each time you go in and out, you have to give them your locker number. And like all day, it's not like there's that many people there, but you still do, sort of like a formality. But then, one of the guys, I'm like, okay, it's Anna, go ahead.
Nice. So they know you up there. You're like.
They do now.
So if I ever went up there and I said, I know Anna, man, so you gotta hook me up, and they'd be like, oh, okay.
No, it's just, oh my God, there's so many people there. I mean,
right.
So
generally, it's generally like a big library.
Yeah. So to speak. Yeah, and I just saw like one room, basically. Room of it, the manuscript room. I mean, just the time was so precious. I would have loved to have gone to look around more, but I just wanted to spend every minute that I could with the archives. And I was, just that and going over to Congressman Lewis's office, which is right across.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So.
We got 5 or 6 more.
We do?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I was looking at that.
Mine's is off. My computer. I don't know what I did to it, but the computer's off.
Yeah. Okay. Library. Yeah. Well, Library of Congress. So okay, Bayard's archives. What's interesting is they don't even start. The first entries are from 1942, and he was born in 1912. So.
But don't they do it by order of year, but don't they do it by when he started in politics, or how does it? How do archives work?
Archives are everything.
Okay.
Like if something happened, like everything. It's supposed like your checkbooks when there were checkbooks.
Oh, so it's literally
passports, like everything that's in your desk, pretty much.
So like if he had a ball when he was 4 years old, when they
it's. No.
It would be
but scrapbooks, any paper, not just, photo, media, photos, records, like your birth certificate and stuff, like his birth certificate and passport, stuff like that winds up in archives. So I'm really curious about why it doesn't start till 1932. Like, did he save anything from then, or... I wish I had people that I could ask about it.
Could have saved it, or it could have just somehow disappeared.
Well, there's information. There's photographs of him, certainly, because I've seen there's documentaries there's photographs of when he was young. So I just don't know where they are. But I thought the archives would be everything.
Right.
And he certainly, people kept stuff back then. Like, why wasn't his passport there? I don't know. I really wish I had somebody to talk to about all the research to help me figure out some of those questions. Because I realized, like, oh God, this is so huge, because I was looking at Bayer's archives, so then I would need to go look at other people that corresponded with them to see other material, not just Ralph Bunche, but I mean, just the big Ralph Bunche and diplomacy and nonviolence are just the same thing. You just refuse to argue.
Right.
So, it's just, I was pretty proud that Congressman Lewis was interested in that connection.
Nice.
Yeah.
It is 3 more minutes.
Oh, okay. I keep looking at that. Well, I kept telling him to come to Vallejo, but
You might do it one of these times.
yeah.
You just send him the link to I don't know if you have him on Facebook.
Of course, like millions of others. Yeah. Well, he said keep in touch.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, definitely. If I come up with some writing or research, I'd send it. But yeah, it's just tricky to know. Like, I'm interested in his time in Africa, and so I have some records of that. So then I'd need to go and look at records of the other people that are mentioned there, or just, that's just what's so interesting when you're doing this primary research. Like, okay, I'll see his piece of this meeting. So I was writing down, like, meetings he was at and who else was at those meetings. And I found a letter with people that were going to be at the Nobel Prize banquets. It was Ralph Bunche and his wife and Martin Luther King and Mrs. King. And so I was trying to figure out, like, wait, was Bayard there too? Would they have crossed paths there? And then I have one picture of Bayard and Ralph Bunche in the same group.
Nice.
So with A. Philip Randolph and Coretta Scott King and John Senton, the publisher of the Defender.
I think we are at that time.
Okay. Well, this week will sadly be 2 years since Pearl Pinson was kidnapped, and so there'll be a gathering to support her family, and a big congratulations to Hakeem and Catherine. They got married. Yes. They got married on Saturday, so I was like, yes, Vallejo's royalty.
There you go.
So, okay, people. Well, we are every 2 weeks now. Mm-hmm. So I will see everybody in 2 weeks. And thank you so much to Susan.
All right. Thank you again, Susan.
Bye.
Anna's Book Club, radiofortheworld.com.
Yep.